I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into an amazing book, an amazing adventure, and an amazing life. The name of the book is The Quirky Clan, a biography of an eccentric family's unconventional lives by Anna Raines. This fascinating memoir spans 5 generations of extraordinary adventures, from a childhood in a converted bus to life-changing experiences in Hong Kong and California's hippie era. With humor, heart, and a zest for life, Anna takes us on a journey through a family like no other. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing this wonderful book. The links are below the interview. Anna, great to see you here today on Spotlight. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm
Well,
excited.
I'm excited to have you on the show. This is quite a life. This is quite an adventure. What made you decide to share your stories in this book, The Quirky Clan?
Well, I didn't actually plan to let anybody have it except my children and great grandchildren because I got so many amazing, mad stories about my family. And so I thought I'd better write them down because one day they might think that they come from a normal family, but they don't.
Nothing normal about this family, completely unconventional and completely wonderful. Tell us about life traveling around in a converted bus. How old were you? Where were you traveling? And who were you traveling with?
I think I was about 4. I don't know. I don't know where we got the money to buy the bus because we were absolutely flat broke at that stage. But we bought this bus. I think it was built about 1910 or something. It was very old. And our neighbours, Romany gypsies, help us fit it out. And off we set, only to find that the police didn't allow us to park just anywhere. They come banging on the windows because they thought we were gypsies or tinkers. And so the only way to sort it out was first of all to go and join a fun fair. My mother ran the hoopla stall, she said. And then we joined a circus, sang a circus, and we went on our way. We put up posters in the middle of the night on other people's property, hoping that the glue would dry before they found them. And eventually we got our showman's license and we set off across country from Wales to the south of England.
Wonderful. So you were in this bus, you found out it was more difficult to navigate in this bus than planned because you weren't allowed to park it anywhere. At one point, you hook up with a circus and you guys actually join a circus?
Yes, we did. We were only the fly posters, the people who put the posters up. But years later, I met somebody and I was talking to him. He said, "Oh, I'm circus folk." And I said, "Oh, so were we." And I said, Sanger circus. He said, "Oh, so that's Lord George." I said, "My parents were very friendly with the lion tamer and his wife." He said, "Oh, that was Uncle Bert and Auntie Frida." And he was exactly the same age as my brother. So we would all play together, but I don't remember it. I just vaguely remember bits of it, but not much.
Exactly. You just remember the context of being in the bus and being with the circus. It must have been wild. How many siblings do you have?
I had a brother and a sister. They both died years ago.
Hmm.
My brother was extraordinary. He died at the age of 51, but boy, did he fill his life up. There wasn't much Hugo hadn't done. So I had to.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're sorry they're past. Glad that you had wonderful adventures with them in your childhood. Part of your adventures was moving 46 times. What was it like moving so many times? Was it a little frightening? Did you embrace it? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, actually, it sort of became part of the norm. I was never quite sure where we were going to move. And out of all those moves, I only chose one of them. I seemed to be taken by my parents. And then my mother gave me a one-way ticket to Hong Kong, and I met my first husband there. That was a bit of a mistake, actually. And where it was. And then we seemed to move when we were in California. Moved a number of times in order to make money to move up the real estate development area. So and then he decided he wanted to come back to England. So we came back to England and we lived in a thatched cottage. And at one point, Anton decided to build his aeroplane. Now, this was not a model aeroplane. It was 20 foot, 18 feet long and a 22-foot wingspan. But he couldn't build it in the barn because there was no electricity. So he decided to build it in the house. So, yeah, so people say, can I use your bathroom? I said, yeah, but don't trip over the plane. And it was okay until he decided that the best place to build the wings would be in our bedroom. But fortunately, it was a very old cottage and there was no way to get them out again. So then he decided to go back to California and I stayed in England and moved a number of times again. So
That was the end of that
that's
relationship. But your adventures continued. Let's go back to a part of your life living in a remote cottage without modern amenities. What chapter of your life was this, and what was that like?
I guess I was about 7 at that time because we moved back to Wales and we went to stay on this farm. The farmers, they were really kind to it, but they had no sanitation either. And they let us have this cottage, which I seem to remember was seemed to be filled with wood. Why they were storing wood, I don't know. As kids, we loved it. The water for drinking came from a spring across the field, which we shared with the cows. So it wasn't always clean. Washing water came from a stream, and we had an outside loo in the garden. And occasionally, one of the ponies would run through the house with us children. We had a ball. That's why I'm always so healthy because I ate a lot of dirt in those days. The cottage was in the middle of a field. It was a mile to the nearest road, and we had to walk to the school every day across the fields to get there. There was one lovely story. There's an actress friend, not quite a relative, who was married to Alan J. Lerner to visit us in the cottage. Go on, Sandy did. So that was it. We were in the middle of the fields, but it was a good time. That's the farmhouse I was in, and that window is where the ghost of Mr. Bowler appeared to me.
Okay. Tell us about the
So,
ghost of Mr. Bowler. What happened there?
well, our granddaughter was living with us, and she woke up one night and she wouldn't go back to sleep. She kept saying she'd seen a face. I dismissed it. She was about 2 at the time. And a few months later, I woke up and beside the bed was a man. I panicked. How did he get in? Was it something? Was he going to kill us? And then I realized it was an old man. And then I realized it was a ghost. And I stopped being frightened. His face was as clear as yours. He had a very ruddy complexion, deep lines down the side of his face. And he had what I thought were steel grey eyes. And it was as if he was sitting there watching over somebody ill or dying. And I was curious. I kept thinking, if only I could draw this face. Anyway, I remained quite still. And then I slightly moved. And with that, he vanished. Within seconds, he'd gone and the room was pitch black. So next day, I put something in the village magazine to say, does anybody know who it might have been? And 4 old ladies called me and said his name was Mr. Bowler. He didn't have steel grey eyes, he had piercing blue eyes. And one of them asked me, was he wearing a hat? And I said, an old battered trilby sort of hat.
Mm.
Anyway, we didn't think more about it. We heard him for 10 years. We used to hear him walking about in the room above the kitchen, banging on the front door, but he was completely harmless. Then one day a
Amazing.
man came to the back door and he said, excuse me, was this house on television last night? I went, no. He said, because my mother was watching the television and she recognized the old house because she convalesced there 70 years ago with her uncle and aunt Bowler. I went, oh God, that's our ghost. Anyway, he brought her to visit us and she looked around the house. It had changed quite a bit downstairs, but when we got upstairs and into our bedroom, she said, I remember this room. This used to be my uncle and aunt's room, and there was a little table in the corner where he kept his medication, and he had a chair right beside it. And my jaw dropped. That was exactly where he was sitting when I saw him. Now, the cottage we're in now also had a haunting, but a rather nasty haunting. And I had to get somebody from the church in to get rid of the one in this cottage that I'm in now. Well, sort of. My mother was sort of landed gentry. She was a Scottish family. She was born in Edinburgh. My grandmother lived in a big house. My mother never learned to cook or do anything because my grandmother had always had servants. But my father came from the East End of London, a barrow boy, we used to think. He was very much the, one class to another. But my father, he was a wonderful man, my father. He was the kindest person I've ever come across. So my mother's family cut her off completely. I'm not surprised. But we didn't care. We had fun. We were very happy. We had no money. We used to drink out of clean jars of jam because we hadn't got any cups or anything or anything like that. But we were lucky because we were living on the farm where there was plenty of chickens, pigs, and everything else that we could eat. So we were never short. There was plenty of butter and milk. We were never short after the war. So we really weren't involved in the rationing that we had at that time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had a wonderful adventure growing up, that you embraced the differences of your family, the quirkiness, and the honesty and the living off the land. When you look back on your life, what was the most interesting aspect of it? What was the most interesting part of it that you experienced? Was it living in California, Wales, in the remote cottage, traveling with the circus? What's the most, what's the part that really sticks out to you?
I loved California, absolutely loved living there. But I learnt with all the moves, never look back. Don't look back and wish you were somewhere else. Get on with it and live and enjoy where you're living, get involved, meet people, and get on with your life. But I have to say, I'm very happy where I am. I've been half my life in this small village. It's a farming village, you know that by the amount of mud there is on the road. Everybody's very friendly and very kind. There's a horse in the field on one side of me, cows on the other side of me. So I think I'd have to say I love living where I am.
Wonderful. And I think that's great. I think that's a healthy aspect of your life, that you look back on your life, you enjoy the different aspects of it, the different places you live, the different adventures that you had. But when you look back now, the happiest place is where you are right now. And I think that's great. A beautiful home in Cheshire, in a remote village, and still living an unconventional and wonderful life. The name of the book is The Quirky Clan, a biography of an eccentric family's unconventional lives. It's written by a wonderful author, a wonderful woman, Anna Raines. It is a fascinating memoir that spans 5 generations of extraordinary adventures, from a childhood in a converted bus to life-changing experiences in Hong Kong and California. The book has humor, heart, and a zest for life. You will love it, and you'll want to write down your own memoirs after reading this terrific book. Anna, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Great having you on the show. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.